Is the main reason that Grendel tried so hard to understand the humans a direct reflection of his not being able to understand himself and the way he worked, or is it just because he believes them to be lowly, while the humans see him as a lower life form?
Grendel's on a quest to self-discovery, and he just wants to understand what it is that makes him so different from the humans. He doesn't understand why the humans need things such as their gods to worship, or why they fight each other constantly, then get together afterwards and laugh and get drunk. Grendel is trying to understand the motivations of human behavior so that he can compare it to the motivations behind his own. This is all done in an effort to really analyze the differences between him and the others. In the end, however, Grendel can't come to a solid conclusion as to whether he is superior or inferior to humans, and he truly does end up understanding himself. He just doesn't like what he realizes when he looks at himself. As he introduces himself in page 6, he refers to himself as a pointless, ridiculous monster.
Does Grendel even seem to want to live? At the beginning of the book, Grendel talks of how he could throw himself off of a cliff, saying, "I am aware of my potential. I could die." Grendel doesn't seem to wish either death or life on himself throughout the book, and when he talks to the dragon in chapter 5, he basically realizes that whether he lives or not does not particularly matter to him, so he might as well catch a thrill of doing dangerous things. Answer. In Grendel's eyes, being mechanical serves a greater purpose because emotions and abstract ideals mean nothing to him. To him, the world is a mechanical chaos of casual, brutal enmity. So there is no point in believing anything else or having any feelings because there is no hope. The humans are stupid creatures who impose their emotions and feeling of hope on others even though they act robotic, and like machines, even though they think they are the most intelligent and insightful of them all. Grendel does not see any point in any of their behavior, and while he hates mechanicalism, he is too mechanical because he acts without thought and only goes through the motions of daily life without thought or care. Free thinking and emotions and attachment means nothing to Grendel because he has to connect with the world and thus acts mechanical.
How does Grendel's upbringing affect his outlook on life and the world around him? Grendel was raised without affection, thus he does not understand the significance of emotions and attachment. This facilitates his hatred of humans because they form attachments and have hope, while Grendel sees that the world was nothing, I alone exist. Because he was raised without love and self-worth, therefore nothing seems to matter to him besides himself. The world is empty because he was raised with the perceptions that nothing is of importance due to the void he has felt from being raised without a voice of affection and understanding. To Grendel, the world is insignificant and pointless because in his eyes he is nothing more than a monster who has no reason for existence. While his mother may be affectionate towards him in her own way, he rejects her love because the two are unable to connect and see each other's perspective. This is reflected in Grendel's view of the world, as he is unable to see the world from the perspective of the humans or the animals because he sees the world is all a pointless accident.
Do you think Grendel realizes that he judges the humans just as much as they judge him?
I think that Grendel doesn't really think about how the humans see him or how they think of him until he speaks to the dragon. He is selfish in a way because he doesn't think things through when it comes to his actions and behavior or how it affects the humans and their perception of him. I also don't think he understands how the more he kills, the more negativity is pointed towards him. He only sees humans as small creatures with dead-looking eyes and gray white faces. He doesn't notice how he is just as much of a pattern maker as they are. Grendel and the humans are essentially the same. Grendel just has more power and isolation, so he sees everything differently.
What purpose does Grendel's mother serve in the book or in Grendel's life? Grendel's mother is the reason he is how he is, because although she is in his life and raised him, she is also the reason he feels isolated and disconnected with the world. This is because she never speaks and doesn't know how to communicate with Grendel, except for holding him close to her because she'd forgotten all language long ago. One of the only things she does in the book that brings out her significance is protecting Grendel to the best of her ability, such as when she saved him from the tree he was stuck in. She also adds to Grendel's anger because of her lack of understanding Grendel or his language. When Grendel actually walks out of the cave and realizes that he is a separate being from her, he enters into a whole new world and discovers more than he'd ever wished to.
Why did Grendel really attack the mead hall?
Grendel is actually very similar to humans in that he craves interaction with others. His interaction with anyone aside from himself is very limited. You can tell that Grendel is frustrated by his mother every time he complains about the lack of conversation slash the walls of her unconsciousness that he experiences. During the 12 years that Grendel attacks the meat hall, it is very obvious that Grendel wants nothing more than to join the humans, because before he goes in to slaughter Hrothgar's men, he typically spies on the humans for a little while at the crack he'd used before and watched before working up to his attack.
Why does Grendel have such a strong attraction and emotional response to the Shaper's words and songs?
Grendel seems to already be interested in the language because he's the only one that speaks in between him and his mother. Grendel is somewhat annoyed by the Shaper's stories and words because he believes them to be lies. What makes Grendel more agitated with the Shaper is the effect that he has on people at the meat hall and how gullible they are to the Shaper's words. Grendel is also hurt when the Shaper talks negatively about him to the whole meat hall and influences them to hate Grendel just as much as Grendel hates them. This forces Grendel to turn away from the shield he has over his emotions and cry and contemplate everything about himself. He becomes infuriated with the meat hall's ignorance and how the Shaper changes history so easily. In addition, Grendel also becomes consumed with how eloquent the Shaper's words and stories are, along with how he explains everything. He tries to back away till the honey-sweet lure of the harp no longer mocked me, yet even now my mind was tormented by the images.
What facilitates Grendel's hatred for humans? Grendel is unable to understand the ways of the humans. He's afraid of their judgment and how ignorant they are to everything except the words of the Shaper. When Grendel first meets the Shaper, he perceives the Shaper as stupid and questions, what was he? The man had changed the world and had transmuted it, and they, who knew the truth, remembered it his way. The judgment that the Shaper and the human make about history is almost set in stone. It causes the humans to disregard different perspectives and only see from their point of view and from the point of view of the Shaper. Grendel is disregarded and his version of truth is never heard because he is seen as the villain and becomes the butt of all harsh remarks. This leads Grendel to become enraged and hate the humans because they do not see anything other than himself. Eventually, Grendel too becomes ensnared by the words of the Shaper and begins to believe that his words are gold, further aiding in his hatred for humans because they have such a strong power over the perception of reality and truth.
Does Grendel deserve to be pitied? Answer. Grendel is misinterpreted and ostracized by society. While his ways seem unjustified to humans, his reasoning behind them makes sense in his head. When Grendel first hears the words of the Shaper, he enters the mead hall yelling, "Mercy, peace," because he is so enraptured by the Shaper's enchanting words. But the humans scream in panic at the sight of such a beast. This prompts Grendel to hold up his body for protection against drunken men with battle axes, and their spears come through one of the bodies and nicked him. The men in the mead hall provoked Grendel to defend himself against their weapons. He was only trying to appreciate the words of the Shaper, but the prejudice and blindness of the humans caused Grendel to be further isolated. He deserves to be pitied since all he wanted to do was be accepted and constantly asks, "Why can't I have someone to talk to?" While everyone else has someone who will listen and care for them, he is alone and unwanted.
Why is Grendel so depressed at the thought of Hrothgar marrying Wealhtheow? Wealhtheow reminds Grendel of his mother because of their similar loving nature. Grendel's mother would do anything to protect him, just like how Wealhtheow would do anything for the king, like giving up her freedom. I think this is one of the reasons he doesn't rape or kill her when he gets the chance. When Hrothgar ends up marrying Wealhtheow, I think it affects Grendel personally because he loves her in a way. She's young, could have served a more vigorous man, he says. This connects with his hatred towards Hrothgar and adds to it. Because Grendel doesn't know what love is or how to react to it, he thinks of Wealhtheow in a negative way and despises everything about her as a way of showing his love.
What does Grendel really mean in the last line of the book? At the very end of the book, after Beowulf defeats Grendel, Grendel says, "Poor Grendel's had an accident, so may you all." What Grendel is saying here is that his existence did not mean anything, and eventually we will all end up dead. Grendel is going off of the dragon's philosophy that the dragon filled him in on in the 5th chapter, that the laws of nature are large average effects which reign impersonally, meaning that the universe doesn't care one way or another for individuals.